Hello out there and welcome to another Tea and Tight special. Our guest this week has been a referee of the British wrestling scene for the past 18 years. You may have seen him on the WWE network on Progress. He is also a referee for some of the biggest independent promotions in the UK, including Rev Pro UK and Fight Nation Wrestling, as well as All Star Wrestling and Premier Wrestling, two of UK's oldest promotions. He is Mr. Chris Hatch. Welcome to the show.
What an intro. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. How are you today?
Yeah, really good, really good. Pleased to be back out and about with the wrestling quite as much as I've been lucky enough to do in the last few months. And just pleased to be going.
Indeed, we look forward to speaking to you about it. And we are, of course, Tea and Tights, a Great British Wrestling podcast for Great British Wrestling, as featured on bodyslam.net. I am your host, the Great British Taku, Mr. Andrew Moore, and Ethan Most. And my co-host, as always, is the pro wrestling t-shirt champion of the world, Big Daddy Dan, Daniel Allen. How are you, Daniel?
I am enjoying this beautiful sunny day. You wouldn't think it was October with the temperatures like this, would you?
No, it's lovely. We've got strong winds up north, but the weather itself is really nice.
Oh, well, that's north for you. I'll enjoy south. Where roughly are you based, Chris?
So I'm on the Kent-London border. So I like to say Kent because it sounds nicer. So I'll take the sunny south for today.
I'm heading to Kent for some wrestling tomorrow. I'm going to Rumble Wrestling.
I will see you there.
Hey, excellent.
Excellent. Of course, because we have a UK referee, might as well mention that it is the Mal Mason lightweight tournament final, and the special guest referee is Mr. Steve Gray.
Correct, yeah. And he certainly, if anyone's going to know how to run through a rounds match, it's going to be Steve. So,
yeah, amen to that. I'm really looking forward to this. I went along to watch the semi-finals, and it was excellent. It's going to be a very good evening of wrestling.
What was the last British rounds match that you actually got to referee?
Oh, blimey. It would be quite a long time ago. I'm going to say it probably involved Johnny Kidd because he tended to do a few of the odd guest appearances on shows. And yeah, Johnny Kidd in a rounds match, just absolutely phenomenal.
Phenomenal wrestler. Have you enjoyed the actual sort of like the NXT UK bringing that back as a Heritage Cup and doing that and honouring the history of it?
I like that it's honouring the history of it. It's certainly a little bit different, but it's modernised to a present day audience, which is understandable. So it's nice to have some semblance of it coming through, especially when they've got Johnny Saint involved. It just keeps these little nods back, which help differentiate it from any of the other products they've got.
Yes.
So when did you start getting interested in yourself?
So it was just flicking through the TV when I was young one day, as most people. Oh, I like this. And then really got into it 97, 98 time. And then walking along local high street, and there was a poster up with a show with Yokozuna on it. And that was my first British show. It must have been 98, 99, something like that. And it turns out it was Yokozuna and Rikishi as a team in a 4-on-2 tag. I mean, at that time, I had very little idea who Fatu was as he was announced on the show. So, but yeah, it was a 4-on-2 tag, and I got the bug from there. And it was a case of I went to that first show because of the international draw. But then they did a G on that show for Robyce Burnside versus Soldier of Doom in a ladder match the next time. So there was no import on the next show, but I was so drawn into going to see that match they'd set up that I was then hooked into going every time.
That's awesome. I've really looked forward to having you on because, as Daniel will tell you, one of my biggest gripes these days are wrestlers following rules. Now, this has kind of been a common criticism of AEW in their tag division. I don't want to name names. What's your kind of take on this?
Yeah, I would say the AEW referees are take a fairly relaxed view on the rules, but in the sense of it still has to be, we know it's sports entertainment. So if they're still telling the story of the match they need to, I'm not necessarily going to go, oh, you let them do that or you didn't let them do that. I get it. I get why they're doing it. Is it for me? Probably not so much. I'm very much a stickler for the rules. We've mentioned rounds matches already. I love rounds matches because they give the referee more authority. So, yeah, I understand it. Whether I like it or not, maybe not so much, but I do get why they're doing it.
They could at least do it like ICW and announce it as AEW rules, as opposed to ICW rules being, pretty much just anything goes and roughly count to three. At least they could do something along those lines.
Do you actually have to ask promoters, especially to like newer promotions that come up and ask you to be a referee, what rules are you wanting in the ring?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think near enough everyone nowadays just goes by the American sort of what you would call standard WWE style rules. There's only a couple of exceptions to that, or it's used as, like you say, as it'll be a certain style of match that they'll specifically say, oh, but this one, can you do it like this? But in general, most promotions now just go with the American style rules, and they'll tell you otherwise if it needs to be different.
Yeah. One of the new rule, well, it's an old rule that they've reinstated in the WWE, is this, you can only break up a pin once during a tag team match. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I like that. Again, otherwise, how long would a match? You could, in reality, a match could just go and go and go. So I've got no problem with that. And the good thing, if it's on the level of WWE, the referees really, you've always got authority, but the referees have got the authority that you break a pin up twice, I'll throw the match out, you're going to get in trouble for it backstage.
Yeah.
Which maybe doesn't happen so much at other levels, but if they're going to bring in rules like that and the refs have got the backup to do it, then I'm all for it.
Excellent. Anything, Dan?
Well, as far as the rules go, how many times do you see British rings having tag ropes, or is it generally just to try and keep them vaguely in the corner?
It's very, very rare. And so rare that often when the tag ropes are there, you have to remind the wrestlers that they're meant to be holding them. And even then, it doesn't always go to plan. It's one that Progress have made a big point of having the tag ropes for their tapings. So that's one where I've gone, oh, that's nice. I've seen the tag ropes, but it's not particularly common nowadays for them to be there, and they often get ignored anyway.
So one of my ones is, what actually constitutes a legal tag?
So this is an interesting one because it's been debated a little bit lately. A tag has to be above the waist. So you can tag the hand, you can tag the back, but if they stick their foot out and it's a hand to foot tag, then you don't let it go.
Oh, CCK used to be terrible for that one, didn't they? Chris Brooks and Kid Lyos. Yeah, I remember that.
And you do then get exceptions where people go, we're going to do this tag, but can you let it go this time? And again, it's one of those that, dare I say, if you're doing a Progress or a Rev Pro, you've got to be a little bit more, people are watching. If you're on a family-friendly show, these kids are not going to worry that they've tagged with their foot. They just want to see wrestling. So,
well, I don't know. I might be pointing that out on Friday.
Hey, well, I'll be a stickler. Don't you worry.
Because the Progress actually made a point of that during Greedy Souls matches recently. Actually, I remember a couple of times. But I wondered if that was actually something Greedy Souls has said to do, because it then led to them being able to do a behind the referee double team.
Yeah, I mean, part of it was, I believe they did it intentionally so that the referee was then distracted by keeping the guy out the ring so they could do something. But it was still it was part of the rules to get to that point. So, yeah.
No, I like that. So I'm a big, stickler for it. One of the ones I've got, a Sunshine Machine, is the one where they go in between the ropes. Is that technically legal, or should it be above the top rope?
That's a very good question. I would probably go with letting that go, because it's still a hand-to-hand tag. I would probably let that go.
There we go. There we go. Some basic rules of wrestling. I love things like that. I hope you guys did as well. Let's talk about some of who do you see right now as the big stars on the UK independent scene?
So, I mean, wherever you go, there's certain names that keep cropping up as being top-level talents. Chris Ridgeway, obviously with the Ring of Honor news, hopefully that's not going to deter him too much, but he's made a name in Japan. He's made his name over here. I can't see it being long before he makes his name across the pond even more as well. Cara Noir just seems to keep performing, and I don't know where he pulls it out the bag from sometimes. It's just so good and such a mind for wrestling as well. And also just seeing Doug Williams back, I absolutely love that.
Yeah, good old Doug. When he announced return, it was amazing. But then to see him not just popping up for the big promotions, but popping up for near enough every promotion across the UK, I think he literally got a booking for, and certainly fair play to just get him back out there and doing it.
Yeah, and he has been out there. He's been at so many promotions. I've seen him at Rev Pro. I've seen him at FNW. Yeah, he's been all over the place.
Shropshire Wrestling Alliance as well. Just it's good to see that. Same with Chris Ridgeway. He's all over the place. Now you actually just talked about Russel Carnival. For you guys who don't know are out there yet, if you've checked out ROH's latest week by week, Chris Ridgeway had a ROH Pure Rules match, at which point he was offered an opportunity to join Jonathan Gresham's foundation. Have you wanted to referee a Pure Rules match like that?
Being such an advocate for the rounds matches, I would love to do a match like that. And I believe it was James Greenwood ref that match, and I've not seen it back, but I was told what a great job he did of putting over the number of rope breaks and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the sort of match I would love to do.
I think we need to incorporate that in the UK. Pure Rules match.
I can see it happening.
Now, one of the questions we ask typically all our guests, we look across the pond in the United States, and they say the Mount Rushmore, and it's always American wrestlers, and of course you've got the Four Pillars in Japan. We created Mount Rushden, and we think that UK wrestlers deserve it just as much as some of these guys. The lineage of UK wrestling dates back much further than most. Who do you think in the UK that would deserve to be on that mountain?
Okay, so I've already said Doug. He's got to have a spot just for what he's done for so many years and at the level he's done it and around the world. He's like top name that's got to go on there. One personal one for me, I'd put Robbie Brookside on there. Again, what he did over the years and now what he's doing in America with the training, you can just see elements of it. And when I was fairly new in the wrestling scene, I saw a lot of Robbie. I did a bit of traveling with Robbie and watched some of the training sessions he was taking. And you can tell them why WWE now wants in there training their people, because it was just so good to watch. Even if he does always rip on me for being a Saints fan whilst he's an Everton fan, but we can ignore that bit. Rollerball Rocco.
Nice.
Just to go for that era, knew how to incite a crowd at every opportunity. And for me, he was one of the defining characters of the era. Yes, you had your Big Daddies, your Giant Haystacks, your three that if you ask any non-wrestling fan, they've heard of. But for me, it was Rocco getting the crowd going that meant an awful lot during that era. Fourth one. Am I allowed to go for somebody I class as an honorary Brit?
Yes.
Yeah, of course you are.
So I class Toni Storm as an honorary Brit. And I think she helped the British wrestling scene level up when she was over here. And it's no surprise that she's now doing such amazing things in America as well. So, yeah, I would put her on it for what she's done for the women's scene over here.
That's excellent. I think that's the first time someone's actually put a female competitor on the list. So fair play and well done.
Yeah. So that's looking at some of the most experienced wrestlers from the UK scene. Who do you see at the moment that's coming up? Because as we mentioned, you are as close as can possibly be. Who do you see as the young talent that are coming through that are going to be making a huge difference in the next sort of 18 months to 2 years?
So there's plenty around, absolutely plenty of talent. We're not going to be struggling, let's put it that way. But I'm going to say two names here. One has got to be Danny Black.
Yes.
I have been so impressed, and I'd already say he's already stepped up. I wouldn't say he's an up and comer anymore, but from seeing him, I think I reffed his first match. So to see his progression, and then for him to be on the progress shows and in the matches, whether he was planned to be in those matches or not, he puts himself in those positions because he was so good at those tapings. And I can just see him keep rising and rising and rising for now. And one other name that I wouldn't necessarily call them an up and comer because they've been around for a good number of years now, but the steps up that Brendan White's taken lately has been really good. He's had some great matches in Rev Pro where they've put him with Doug as a team. Brendan has absolutely shone in that position. He's looked good as part of the Greedy Souls in progress. And I wouldn't say he's just a tag wrestler by any means. He can really go. So I'd say he's got big things in the next 12 months.
Just finished watching his tag team match at live in Southampton, which is on the Rev Pro UK on demand service now. And yeah, brilliant match. And his wrestling, as you say, because he's a big lad, he can just get away with being a power wrestler, but his step up in technical ability recently has just been evident to see, working alongside someone like Doug Williams.
We were discussing this actually on the podcast this week about the two different tag teams that he's in. So, yeah, very apt. So one of the questions that I always like to ask people is, obviously, with all the companies that you work with, you get to experience many different wrestling rings. And I can imagine when there are some small rings, it can become somewhat challenging when it comes to rope breaks. What is the worst ring that you've ever had to work in?
Worst ring. Oh, now there's a few that aren't as good. I've never really had a problem. Sometimes if they're a bit small, then it's a problem. But you tend to, on those shows, have wrestlers who can work around that. Okay. But I'll take one that was a learning curve for me. Was I won't name exactly what ring, but when I first started refereeing, I walked out to the start of the show, jumped up on the side of the ring, and put my knee down on the apron as normal, where the padding was about that far in the ring. So I just went straight onto pure wooden boards. And from that day on, I've worn knee pads for shows, not necessarily for while I'm in the ring, but for just getting in and out of the ring.
Oh,
nasty. Oh, so we've seen some interesting rings at shows recently with some ropes collapsing. We saw one where the boards came apart recently, didn't we, Andy?
yes.
That was Rev Pro actually. So that was challenging, I can imagine.
Yeah, the boards in the Rev Pro ring do occasionally shift, so that's a challenge, but tend to work around it. I did have one show I did once where a board just completely collapsed through the middle of the ring, and I think it was the match before the main event. They managed to push it back in place, and we were actually doing some sort of TV taping at the time, and the main event was a triple threat. It was triple threat with Pac, Haskins, and Kip Sabian. And they did the first 2 minutes of the match and the board went again. And we managed to go to where the commercial break was going to be. They brawled round the ring whilst people were under the ring pushing the board back into place. Nobody realised. And then we went back in, came back from commercial and finished the rest of the match.
Fantastic.
God, you must have some wonderful stories like that from matches that have had to change on the fly.
I've been fortunate. I've not had too many of them. It's things like that. That's probably the one that stands out that we had to go, oh, hang on a minute, we've got to work around this. But I mean, you've got the traditional, somebody gets injured and you either have to call it or you have to change the finish or something like that. That happened a couple of weeks ago. There was a match that somebody got hurt and it was like, well, we're not going to finish early, but we're going to cut a chunk of the match out and go to a finish so that we can get them backstage and get them checked. So there's little things like that, but I think the most notable one was just the board completely slipping.
Hell of a lineup in that match.
Yeah, that was a pretty big match. Probably stands out as one of the best matches I've reffed, I would say.
And we've talked about some of the matches that you do like to referee, but what are some of the match stipulations that you absolutely hate having to be a referee for?
There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing I particularly hate. When things go very, very no DQ, I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of blood in wrestling. I know there can be a point to it, but I'm not a fan of it. I don't like seeing it. Having had someone absolutely covered in blood in one of the matches I did in the early days, and then he actually cut himself later in the match. Like, it's just not for me. So yeah, anything when we're starting going, oh, let's have some barbed wire involved, or let's have something like, yeah, I'm not such a fan, but that seems few and far between over here.
Yeah, it seems like the deathmatch scene in the UK is not as big as it once was.
Yeah, no, there's certainly not as much. There's occasionally you'll have, oh, we need to take a match somewhere and it will be no DQ, and there might be some weapons, or it sort of gets towards a death match, but there don't seem to be too many, like where we're seeing light tubes and things. And I won't say I won't ref them, but I certainly stay away if there's an opportunity to.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. Dan up above, he's a deathmatch lover. I'm not a big fan of deathmatch wrestling.
I enjoy my deathmatch wrestling. I enjoy most wrestling, but I know that you are very much more of the Japanese technical style. I know that is your thing, Andy.
Yeah, they do have their own hardcore as well, and they get really.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you saw the recent Dark Side of the Ring FNW.
I haven't watched the FNW one. I did just watch the XPW though. That was an entertaining company to watch. So, Chris, next question. I was at FNW in Milton Keynes recently. Not the last taping, but the one before. And you had more chance for you than most of the wrestlers did.
So this is the thing. Try not to be the centre of attention as a referee. And I genuinely think I do that. But just from emceeing, I've worked near enough every Milton Keynes show since Unit 9 started having wrestling there. And just little things that started happening, and I started getting a few chants. And then Bobby Tyler, or Stevie Turner, as she's now known, pushed me over one show. And the crowd went nuts, and people were saying, well, you two are having a match then. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not going that far. But yeah, I've just always got a reaction there, and it's a bit more difficult because I announced mostly there. So it's a bit awkward when I'm then refereeing, because I'm trying not to take away from the match. Whereas at least if I'm announcing, it's in that little segment, and then I move away and the match carries on. But it's good fun. Somebody put a beanie on my head at the last show, and I was like, do I just leave it on the whole match, or do I take it off? And at what point do I take it off so the crowd don't start booing? So I got it over and done with quickly. I put it on, took it off, done. Let's focus on the wrestling now.
Yeah, actually, one other criticism that's come of sort of AEW referees are that they are taking too much attention away by overreacting to moves and things. How do you kind of see this?
So this is an interesting one that I was having a discussion with a couple of other refs about the other day. There's two schools of it. One, yes, you react to moves because they're big moves and things. But at the end of the day, you're the professional in there, and you see this every day. So in a way, you shouldn't really react because you're almost expecting some of these things to happen. So again, I think it's finding this happy medium, depending what shows you're doing and who you're working with, of do you need to react or do you not? I can see why AEW refs do. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Bryce Remsburg as a ref as well. So that's probably there's a mitigating circumstance why I'm going to defend them a bit more. But yeah, I can see why they react. Again, I try not to nowadays, but there are still circumstances where you will, and certain shows where you will.
And WWE have gone the opposite way about it, where they don't actually announce the referee's name anymore during matches. And I actually find that as slightly disrespectful. I think in the professional sports, you typically say who the referee is.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch boxing, every fight, they'll announce who the referee is and who the judges are. So to me, I wouldn't necessarily say we need to hear it every match because it would get a bit tedious. But for your main events, for your in-ring introductions, I certainly think the referee should be announced.
Your referee for this match.
Yeah, exactly. And then you move into the introduction.
One of the other things that we recently discussed due to the PWI 150 coming out is obviously we had 3 of our top independent stars make the list, but it seems to be that the US media only consider Progress and RevPro UK as what should be thing. But what other promotions do you think these guys should be paying attention to outside of those?
Other than all of them? Because that's a very diplomatic answer. And it's also difficult for me to not just say the companies that I work for. But I think it's about having this online service nowadays. I think that's what the promotions are maybe missing, because you can watch Progress and RevPro anywhere in the world. Russel Carnival are doing a really good job of getting their matches out there in the same way. Fight Nation, I think they're trying to move back towards that model as well. But again, it's getting seen out there. Based on recent shows I've worked and done, I really think Purpose Wrestling could be a breakout promotion that people need to be watching. And they're using some different talents as well. It's not, it's a good blend of who they're bringing people in, they're establishing their own guys they want to push. And the shows I've done for them so far have been top notch. So that would be one company that I'd like to see noticed a lot more out there.
Yeah, they've been one of our top companies to push. I actually mentioned the fact that yes, Progress should actually be worried about what Purpose Wrestling have been doing. I love the fact that they use an almost full-size ring rather than the much smaller rings that are out there. And as you mentioned, the talents, Michael Oku, OJMO, Connor Mills, that Jordan Breaks, Connor Mills was just an incredible match.
Yeah, Jordan Breaks, again, is I probably should have listed him in the breakout stars, because the way he can work nowadays is just phenomenal. And you feel like he could turn up 2 minutes before his match, just walk in there and do it because he's that good.
We got the NIC over there, the North Island Connection, such a great young tag team, really they were making waves in Progress, but right now, as you say, they're part of the Purpose Wrestling, and they've just done such a great job with 3 fantastic tag team matches so far. I think they're dropping one on YouTube tonight. I think I saw a little tweet about it. I did say yes, please. So hopefully the latest Purpose Wrestling will be on YouTube. So all 3 of you, us, urge you to go and search that out and go check it out, because we guarantee you it will be a great show.
Yeah, so far, every Purpose show has been on a night I've been DJing, and I've not been able to get out to see them yet.
So considering it's coming up to Christmas, you'll be DJing on December the 10th, I'm guessing.
I am indeed, every Friday and Saturday and most Thursdays.
Oh, blimey, that's a nice schedule to have, but not so good for wrestling. So
not so good. I've got tickets coming up for Stevenage for the RevPro show. Yeah, super excited about that.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a sec.
Yeah, let's go into it now. Let's discuss the J-Cup, because that looks like it's going to be a bit special.
Yeah,
it's something that's been so good on the calendar the last few years, and Obviously, it's been a bit more difficult with Rev Pro coming back in the era we're in and not being able to fly in as much talent or anything as they have in the past. But the J Cup lineup for this year is looking really good, and bringing in like Akira coming in from Italy after what he's done in Japan and everything as well. It's a great shout to have him in there. And also not just brought him in for the J Cup, but had him in for a couple of other shows before as well. So he's now established as a Rev Pro wrestler. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Stevenage.
Yeah.
Speedball Mike Bailey. So there's 6 announced so far, which is Speedball Mike Bailey, Fireball Francesco Akira, as you just mentioned, Connor Mills, because he defeated Callum Newman in a qualifying match, Robbie X after he defeated Martin Kirby in a qualifying match, Michael Oku, the current Cruiserweight champion of Rev Pro UK, and just announced today, Chris Ridgeway is going to be part of it as well.
Just gets better.
And then that 6-man tag main event, which features Will Ospreay and Aussie Open, who are just phenomenal right now, all three of them, against RKJ, Luke Jacobs, and I'm guessing Ethan Allen is now going to be replaced because he just picked up an injury, unfortunately. But what a great match.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that match, I believe, like those, they Rev Pro have been a bit unlucky with like Shota is injured, and now Ethan picking up a knock. It's a shame, but you look at the level of that match and the show it's on. I'm not saying they can just put anyone in there because Andy won't do that, but whoever goes in there, it's going to be a top draw match.
I reckon it'll be one of the new members of Northwest Strong. I reckon probably Cameron Solis will be the one that steps up.
No. Scott Oberman was the one, because Cameron.
Sorry, you knew where I was going.
Scott Oberman, Keenan would be a good shout. I mean, Ricky Knight Jr. at the moment, for my money, has really established himself as one of the top stars of the scene, and his match with Will Ospreay really helped to establish that.
Yeah, those last 2 matches on that York Hall show, because you have the Aussie Open, Destination Everywhere as well. Those 2 matches, just all 6 men, you can just go, right, there you go, take that, and just step up from it, because it was a long night, but it was a hell of a night.
What have you made of Yota Tsuji so far in Rev Pro UK? I think he's been phenomenal.
He's been really good. Dare I say, I'm also a fan of Lord Gideon Gray, sort of, in a way I'm probably not meant to. So the chemistry they've had, considering you've got Yota, who's obviously not native English speaker, for them to have molded the way they have and have had the storyline they have, it's been really, really good fun. And add to that Yota is then a phenomenal worker and keeps doing Spanish flies off the top rope.
He's what, 240 pound, 250?
Probably something like that. Yeah.
Big boy.
Yeah.
A good weight.
One match I really want to see soon is Charlie Sterling versus Will Ospreay. It's a match I would really like to see.
I'd give you Charlie and Will, but Nick Riley and Will.
Yeah, Riley is just both of these guys have been under the radar and then suddenly have just massively popped up. The new tag team champions of Progress Wrestling, the Smoking Aces, incredible, because they hadn't teamed before, but they competed against each other several times. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, and then they and then some of the matches they've had on those shows, just phenomenal. Like, just Kings of the North.
I love Kings of the North.
Okay, I'm going to put a really difficult question out now. Which match on the UK independent scene that you've been part of, do you think has been the best UK match so far?
Of the last how long?
Just since the return, I guess.
Since the return, That is a really, really tough question because there have been plenty of good matches. I'd probably go with the Aussie Open Destination Everywhere match. Yeah, purely because I didn't realise till I saw Gadge's tweet with the times on it that it went over half an hour. And if I'm in the ring for half an hour and I haven't realised I've been in the ring for half an hour, they've done a really good job of keeping the action going.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal match. I just about prefer the one previous with the Young Guns at the 9th anniversary show, which just phenomenal tag team matches and really deserve higher praise than they've got, more media attention than they've got. They deserve huge star ratings, in my opinion.
Interesting to see you've both picked tag teams.
I love tag team wrestling.
See, I would say I was more of a fan of singles, but you're right. I'm not going to change my match now.
What about you then, Dan? What's your pick?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I think I would probably go with the a significantly less well-known match, Russel Carnival, the first match they had on with Callum Newman, Danny Black, Maverick Mayhew, and it wasn't Joe, was it?
It was Joe Lando.
Yeah, it was Joe Lando.
Joe Lando came away with a win.
Yeah, that match for me was it was everything I like in a high-flying match. The speed, the talent. I just loved it. And I love seeing the new guys coming through. So for me, and I was there, which helps.
Yeah, I was about to say being there live does help.
I would go with that match.
How hard is it to referee and control guys like that when they get going in a match?
Dare I say, you just sort of let them go a lot of the time, and they know what they're doing, and that's where it's partly stand back in amazement at what they're doing. But my main thing in those sort of matches is just as long as they're safe, that's all I'm worried about.
No, that's fair play. Now, NXT UK at first would seem to be considered light and destructive to the UK scene, but what we've seen recently is so many amazing young talents come through. Do you think the benefit of NXT UK is now becoming evident?
I think there's a lot of benefits to it now. You're right. It has created some opportunities. People said, "Oh, that's it. They've sucked up all the talent," and yeah, okay, 100% true. You lost this top level off the show straight away. And they still now do have the ability to go, oh, they're doing all right, I'll pick and choose them. But I don't feel like that's going to be such a problem because you have got these rosters coming through and you have still got some established talent out there. Mark Haskins has been Ring of Honor, but he's still been out there on shows. It's not like he's disappeared from the UK scene and you class him as a top level guy. There's enough of a core being there to be able to carry on. And yeah, I don't think NXT UK is necessarily harming anything at the moment. If anything, it's bringing a bit of notoriety to, oh, hang on, wrestling in the UK.
There is one thing that is making me very angry. Their use of Dan Maloney.
Yeah. Because unfortunately he gets being used more for an enhancement talent. But he's another one of these guys right now that I see is establishing himself as a top star on the scene. TNT Extreme Wrestling, Progress Wrestling, Rev Pro UK. He's about to be on the cusp of winning a big independent title, in my opinion.
And the thing as well is the look he's got is just incredible. And that's why I'm surprised he's not on an NXT UK or whatever more and in a more prominent position, because when you look like that, surely you fit into any of the WWE brands.
Yeah, agreed.
What do you think could help promote the UK scene more now? Do you think there needs to be a promotion with a UK TV deal, or do you think the streaming sites are there for people to use?
I think media is now, everything is becoming streaming. it's just the way of the world. You can access everything. So even if you've got a TV deal, someone will say, okay, but how can I watch it on my phone, on my tablet or whatever? Yeah, you can. So by that point, I think you make yourself available as streaming. The only problem then is if you're all charging £10 a month, people aren't going to spend that on 10, 15 different promotions.
Welcome to a podcast.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit of collaboration, but I think one of the things that would help wrestling, and this is going to sound really daft, is they need to start advertising wrestling more. Because although I think it would help the houses go up and get more new fans in, which will gradually generate a bit more income, a bit more notoriety, and then you've got more in the crowd for streaming services, blah, 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 blah. And I just feel a lot of advertising at the moment goes to, these are the talents that are on the show. Whereas, do people walking down the street seeing a poster know that? No. Do they know what wrestling is if it's in big, bold letters at the top of the poster? Yes, they do. And I just think a little bit more, it's looking at it from a completely different angle, is I think the local promotion needs to go in more across the board, and that will level everything up.
I would like to see some of the larger media companies, wrestling media companies, actually write about British wrestling more often and get ourselves into the papers, because we had that story. We got into the papers at one point, but yeah, something we're trying to do with bodyslam.net, and we just want to see British become bigger and better. I think it's on the verge of another high point, I guess.
Yeah, and it just needs that. It's almost like it needs that tip over the edge, because the shows are there. The shows are there. The shows are great. They just need to be noticed. Like you say, a bit more media attention, a bit more local attention to make sure the attendances are what they need to be. Because some shows you'll see, yeah, they're packed houses. Some shows are like, it's good, but it could be better. And I just think that's where, hang on, if we're getting full houses, everyone's going to feel good about it.
I think what we've got coming this weekend is another step forward with the TNT Extreme Fields show up in Liverpool, where they've brought in 4 other promotions. Is it 4 or 5 other promotions to have shows on their card?
Promotions.
6, yeah.
But what do you? Another thing that we've talked about with Shiva, I guess, is the idea of a UK wrestling federation, of putting some promotions together. Do you ever think that will become a point? Do you think it needs to be done, or?
I don't think a federation would work. I just don't see enough people seeing eye to eye for long enough to make it work long term. But I do think a few collaborations here and there are what's needed. So like maybe 3 or 4 companies, rather than having one streaming service, a streaming service each, there's one streaming service that they share, or little things like that. I think there's the collaboration to be there. Maybe have some guest matches. So if you've got a show that's 2 companies running locally, okay, you're in competition, but why don't you have a guest match? Why don't you work together to lift each other up? Unfortunately, that's very, very difficult in British wrestling, and it's an ideal scenario that may never happen. But there are ways of making little things like that happen.
Dan?
I was going to say, I'm glad to see that you're saying that, and I'm glad, as I said, with the Extreme Fields and also with Catch, have been working with Russel Carnival. I think it's just great to see the companies working together and giving everyone what they want to see, and giving lots of places for people to work.
Yeah, fully agree. I think if you tune into our podcast next week, we're going to do one of our little exercises this week. We're going to be doing Progress versus ICW Super Show. So we'll each create a card version of what we think would be a great super card type show.
Yeah. Right. I think we're coming towards the end of our podcast. Do we have any other questions that we particularly want to bring to Mr. Hatch?
I think he is asking Mr. Hatch if there's any promotions coming up in the next week he would like to quickly advertise. He himself will be there, as well as obviously just advertising the promotion as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of the shows that I've got coming up anyway, so that's good. There's Rumble Promotions near Sittingbourne tomorrow night. There's the J Cup and 229 weekender for Rev Pro. Then there's the weekender for York with York Hall in a couple of weeks after that. Again, Rev Pro. Fight Nation have announced that the next show will actually be back at My Skate World in Eastbourne on the 25th. And then the next Purpose is on December the 10th. So that's pretty much what the schedule's looking like for me at the moment, which is, it's relatively busy. I'll always take being busier, but it's looking good at the moment.
There you go. And you can just see how many UK promotions there are about to go see. And we highly recommend that if you're in the areas, go see them. Even if you're not, drive, get in the car, maybe do a group travel coupon and go see some good old-fashioned Great British Wrestling. With that said, we have been three grown men drinking tea, talking about grown adults wrestling in tights. We hope you have a great day and night. And remember, folks, don't feed the trolls.